Hi friends, so let's talk about ser and estar. So usually when we start studying Spanish, we are told that we have these two verbs in Spanish and both of them mean to be, ser and estar. And we are usually told that we use ser for permanent attributes and we use estar for temporary things. Something like saying the cat is black, we use ser because the cat is permanently black somehow. And for saying something like the cat is tired, since he's tired now, we use estar because it is temporary. It is not really like that. It's slightly more complex, and we'll talk about it in a second. So when we first started using ser and estar, we learned to conjugate those verbs. What does that mean, to conjugate the verbs? Well, in Spanish, verbs have inflections for the different grammatical persons. In English, some verbs have that, some don't, or have like a simple version. For example, in English, if I am doing the action we used to be, I don't say I be, I say I am, and I say you are. So that's an inflected verb. It's changing for the different grammatical persons. So in Spanish, the personal pronouns for the 6 grammatical persons are yo, tú, él, ella, usted. For I, you, one person, he, she, you, formal. Nosotros, we, nosotras, we, feminine. Vosotros, you all, masculine. Vosotras, you all, feminine. And ellos, ellas, they, masculine or feminine. So for conjugating ser, to be, the one that we say at the beginning that is used for permanent stuff, we'll do yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, usted es, nosotros, nosotras somos, vosotros, vosotras sois, ellos, ellas, ustedes son. So for saying something like the cat is black, since being black is permanent for the cat, and so far we are using that framework, we'll say el gato es. El gato, that's a he, so we have to use the third person singular conjugation of the verb. El gato es negro. Estar, how do we conjugate it? It goes yo estoy, tú estás, él, ella, usted está, nosotros, nosotras estamos, vosotros, vosotras estáis, ellos, ellas, ustedes están. So if we want to say the cat is tired, since that's temporary and we are thinking of it like that for now, we'll say el gato está cansado. The cat is tired. That's great. However, that is not really how it works. Basically, we use ser for defining attributes of things or people, things that are like innate characteristics of things or people. And we use estar for a status or a state of a thing or a person. And that status can be permanent, but if we still think of it as a status, we'll use estar. Here is a very clear example, at least for me. So let's say that I'm going to book a flight. I'm going to purchase this flight from the airline's website. And a flight can be expensive, for example. This flight is very expensive. I would say that that is a defining characteristic of the flight. And a flight, usually when I go to board the plane, it can also have a status. It can be delayed or it can be boarding. So basically, if the flight is delayed or the flight is cancelled, that's a status and we'll use estar. El vuelo está cancelado. But if I want to say that the flight is expensive, since that's a characteristic, a defining characteristic of that flight, I'll say el vuelo es caro. Same thing for a car. Let's say that the car is fast or the car is broken. Being broken is a state. It's a status or a state, right? While being fast is a characteristic. So el coche es rápido. The car is fast, using ser, es. But el coche está averiado. The car is broken, needs to be fixed. That said, besides being a defining characteristic or being a status, there are a couple uses that I think it's worth it just to memorize that is the way it is. One of them is professions. We use ser. And yes, we could say that it is because we think of professions as defining characteristics of people. Whatever, we just use ser with professions. If we want to say Juan is a doctor, Juan es médico or doctor. And as a reminder, in Spanish, we don't say Juan is a doctor. We don't say Juan es un médico. We say Juan es médico. Mary is a pilot. María es piloto. Fred is a plumber. Fred es fontanero. We use ser with professions. And then for being in places or at places, and I think this is different in other Romance languages that also come from Latin, but in Spanish, we always use estar for being in or at a place. So if I'm here in the studio, I'll say yo estoy en el estudio. However, for saying something like the Empire State Building is in New York City, we still use estar. El Empire State Building está en Nueva York. And they're not moving the Empire State Building. It's always there. It's permanently there, but it's located there. That's the place. So we'll use estar. El Empire State Building está en Nueva York. Nueva York está en Estados Unidos. New York is in the United States. Lastly, with some attributes, only with some of them, we can choose to use either ser or estar, and we usually get a different meaning. One example would be aburrido. If we use it with ser aburrido, that means to be a boring person. But if we use it with estar aburrido, that means to be bored, like that's your current status. Another one would be being fat or slim. We can say someone es gordo or es delgado, or está gordo, está delgado. And the meaning is slightly different. With ser, we are kind of making it a defining trait. With estar, we are emphasizing the status, like he is fat now, he is slim now. Let me give you a few examples. How would we say I am a lawyer? We'll say yo soy abogado. We use ser, it's a profession. How would I say we are tired? That's a state. I would use estar. Nosotros estamos cansados. How would I say they are in Dublin? That's a location. We have to use estar. Ellos están en Dublín. How would I say Dublin? Dublin is in Ireland. Dublín está en Irlanda. It's a location, so we'll use estar. How would I say Peter is nice? Being nice is a characteristic. It's a defining characteristic of Peter. So I'll say Peter es simpático. How would I say the cat is big? Being big is a defining characteristic of the cat. El gato es grande. What about the cat is sad? That's a state. El gato está triste. What about the cat is in the kitchen? That's a location. El gato está en la cocina. What about the cat is a plumber? That's the cat's profession. I'll use ser. El gato es fontanero. Let's talk about gustar for a second. So in Spanish, if I want to say that I like something, I have to phrase it in a different way. Gustar is not to like. It's kind of the opposite. It's to please or to be pleasing to. So if I want to say that I like apples, I have to phrase it, apples are pleasing to me. And for that, we'll say, las manzanas me gustan. So I'm using gustan because I'm conjugating gustar in the third person plural, because las manzanas, it's a they, it's a third person plural entity. Gustar is a standard regular verb ending in AR, so it would be conjugated gusto, gustas, gusta, gustamos, gustáis, gustan. And that means I am pleasing to, you are pleasing to, he or she is pleasing to. And the last one for the apples, they, las manzanas gustan. So we have to say, las manzanas me gustan. Apples are pleasing to me. Instead of that, it's very common to reverse it and to put las manzanas at the end. It's still the subject of the sentence, but we'll say me gustan las manzanas. In English, we're just saying apples, not the apples. In Spanish, when we mean in general with a noun, we have to use the definite article, las in this case. So, las manzanas, apples in general. Me gustan las manzanas. If I want to say I like pizza, that's singular. So instead of gustan, I'll say gusta. Me gusta la pizza. So if I want to say I like things, I'll usually be using either gusta for one thing, it is pleasing to me, or gustan for more than one. Those things, the apples or whatever, are pleasing to me. Me gusta la pizza. I like pizza. Me gustan las manzanas. I like apples, or apples are pleasing to me. Or are pleasing to me apples. That's kind of how we are phrasing it. If instead of saying that I like whatever noun, like apples, las manzanas, or la pizza, I want to say that I like to do an activity, we'll have to use the infinitive of the verb. And that's the verb, the non-conjugated version of the verb. So if I want to say I like to play football, I'll say me gusta jugar al fútbol. I like to play the guitar. Me gusta tocar la guitarra. That's a different play, right? Jugar for playing like a game or a sport. Tocar for playing an instrument. If I want to say I like to sing in the shower, me gusta cantar en la ducha. So instead of saying me gusta la pizza, me gusta cantar en la ducha, me gustan las manzanas, we can use a longer version and we say a mí me gusta cantar en la ducha. A mí me gustan las manzanas. This a mí is completely optional and it's redundant. It expresses the same thing as the me. So a mí and me are the same thing. It's like the to me part. Those things are pleasing to me. We use it sometimes for emphasis. So we can say me gusta la pizza or a mí me gusta la pizza. If I want to say you like pizza, I'll say te gusta la pizza. Or the long version will be a ti te gusta la pizza. If we want to mention someone that likes something, for example, Peter, if we want to say Peter likes pizza, in that case we'll have to say a Peter le gusta la pizza. We have to start with the preposition a. The reason why is just because Peter is the object in this case, pizza is the subject, the one doing the action, and in Spanish when the object is a person or a pet, we have to add the so-called personal a or personal a, the preposition a right before the name of the person. So a Peter le gustan las manzanas. A Peter le gusta cantar en la ducha. So let me give you a few examples. Let's say I want to say we like to study Spanish. We'll have to say a nosotros nos gusta estudiar español, and that is the long version, or the short version, just nos gusta estudiar español. Let's say we want to say you like Mary. It would be te gusta Mary, or the long version, a ti te gusta Mary. Let's say I want to ask you, do you like chocolate? I'll say te gusta el chocolate. What if I want to ask that but to a group of people, to you all? Do you all like chocolate? I'll say os gusta el chocolate, that's the informal version, or les gusta el chocolate. So basically the full set of pronouns that we use with gustar are me, te, le, nos, os, les. You like chocolate, te gusta el chocolate. I like chocolate, me gusta el chocolate. You like chocolate, te gusta el chocolate. He or she likes chocolate, le gusta el chocolate. We like chocolate, nos gusta el chocolate. You all like chocolate, os gusta el chocolate. They like chocolate, les gusta el chocolate. And if instead of chocolate I'm using something plural like apples, las manzanas, me gustan las manzanas, te gustan las manzanas, les gustan las manzanas, nos gustan las manzanas, os gustan las manzanas, les gustan las manzanas. So these pronouns, they are basically the indirect object pronouns with gustar, which is what is called verbo de afección in Spanish. We just express the person that receives the pleasure as an indirect object, that's it. And these are the indirect object pronouns, me, te, le, nos, os, les. So I was saying earlier that gustar is a regular verb ending in AR and it's conjugated gusto, gustas, gusta, etc. Let's talk about those regular verbs for a second. So let's take cantar, to sing. That's a standard like regular verb ending in AR. So to conjugate it in the present tense, as in I sing, you sing, he or she sings, we'll go yo canto, tú cantas, él, ella, usted canta. Nosotros, nosotras cantamos. Vosotros, vosotras cantáis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes cantan. So basically what we are doing is dropping the AR part. So cantar, we are left with cant up to the T. And then we are adding these endings for basically the present tense. So for the present tense, for verbs ending in AR, those endings are o, as, a, amos, ais, an. Canto, cantas, canta, cantamos, cantáis, cantan. We also have verbs, regular verbs ending in ER and regular verbs ending in IR, and they have their own sets of endings, right? So comer is a verb ending in ER, vivir, to live, is a verb ending in IR. Comer is to eat, vivir, to live. So comer, how do we conjugate it in the present tense? It will go como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. With the personal pronouns yo como, tú comes, él, ella, usted come. Nosotros, nosotras comemos, vosotros, vosotras coméis, ellos, ellas, ustedes comen. So the first person is the same as for AR verbs. Canto, como. All the other ones are different. The ending for the present tense for verbs ending in ER are o, es, e, hemos, eis, en. Como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. For verbs ending in IR, kind of similar to the ER verbs. Vivir, vivo, vives, vive, vivimos, vivís, viven. So the endings are o, es, e, imos, is, en. Vivo, vives, vive, vivimos, vivís, viven. So endings for AR verbs, o, as, a, amos, ais, an. Endings for ER verbs, o, es, e, hemos, eis, en. Endings for IR verbs, o, es, e, imos, is, en. Canto, cantas, canta, cantamos, cantáis, cantan. Como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. Vivo, vives, vive. Vivimos, vivís, viven. And just a quick note, I'm saying vivo, right? For vivir. It's spelled with a V. It's V-I-V-O, vivo. However, it sounds pretty much like a B. It's because in Spanish we don't have the how is it called? The labiodental fricative, the V sound. It's not vivo, it's vivo. It's like bilabial or approximant. It's called, like, in some of them my lips touch, in some they don't. Vivo. So we can use these verbs and conjugate them in the present tense to talk about things we usually do. The present tense is not used for things we are doing right now. It's used for things that we usually do or for facts. For example, my cousin lives in Las Vegas. That's a fact. So I'll say, mi primo vive en Las Vegas. I live in Madrid. Yo vivo en Madrid. For example, I eat pizza on Tuesdays. Yo como pizza los martes. Or I sing in the shower on Fridays. Yo canto en la ducha los viernes. So here are two other regular verbs ending in AR. Caminar, to walk. Bailar, to dance. So how would I say I walk in the park on Thursdays? Yo camino en el parque los jueves. How would I say I always dance at the club on Saturday nights? Yo siempre bailo en el club los sábados por la noche. And for example, leer and beber are two verbs ending in ER. So beber, to drink, leer, to read. So beber, how do we conjugate it? Bebo, bebes, bebe, bebemos, bebéis, beben. Leer, leo, lees, lee, leemos, leéis, leen. So if I want to say I read a lot of books, yo leo muchos libros. If I want to ask you, do you read a lot of books? ¿Lees muchos libros? If I want to ask you, do you drink Coca-Cola every day? ¿Tú bebes Coca-Cola cada día? If I want to say we drink a lot of Coke, nosotros bebemos mucha Coca-Cola. And then escribir, to write, it's another IR verb. And abrir, to open, is also an IR verb. So escribir, how do we conjugate it? Escribo, escribes, escribe, escribimos, escribís, escriben. So I write a lot of letters. Yo escribo muchas cartas. I open a lot of letters. Yo abro muchas cartas. Do you open, do you open a lot of letters on Saturdays? Tú abres muchas cartas los sábados. And I also wanted to talk about reflexive verbs, verbos reflexivos. Sometimes in Spanish we call them pronominales because some of them don't really have a reflexive meaning. It's just a verb that goes with a pronoun. And sometimes we differentiate between the pure pronominals and the reflexive ones, etc. It doesn't matter. For now, we can call them reflexive verbs in English, and it's not an issue. So, for example, if I want to say that I shower every morning, we'll have to use this reflexive verb, ducharse, which means to shower yourself somehow. So I'll say something like, yo me ducho cada mañana. And the thing that is different from like, I sing every morning, yo canto cada mañana, is that with to shower, we have this me. I'm saying yo me ducho cada mañana, which is the myself part. I shower myself. So basically reflexive verbs, they look like regular verbs, but they have an extra pronoun that is kind of part of the verb that we have to add in there. So how do we conjugate these verbs? So let's take ducharse, to shower. So the infinitive of the verb already has a pronoun at the end. It's called ducharse, right? So it's an AR verb like cantar, but with a se attached at the end. So how do we conjugate ducharse, to shower? So first of all, we have to remove the se part at the end. So we are left with duchar. That would be the transitive causing verb of ducharse. It would mean to shower someone, right? So that's a regular verb ending in AR. It would be conjugated ducho, duchas, ducha, duchamos, ducháis, duchan. But to conjugate ducharse, the reflexive version for like to take a shower, to shower yourself, we'll have to add the reflexive pronoun on each person. And the reflexive pronouns are me, te, se, nos, os, se. Very similar to the pronouns that we use with gustar, which are the indirect object pronouns. The ones for gustar were me, te, le. These ones are me, te, se. So the third person is different. If we want to say he likes something, le gusta algo. But if we want to say he showers, se ducha cada día. So me, te, se, nos, os, se. So to conjugate ducharse, to shower, we'll go yo me ducho, tú te duchas, él, ella, usted se ducha, nosotros, nosotras nos duchamos, vosotros, vosotras os ducháis, ellos, ellas, ustedes se duchan. So I shower every morning. Yo me ducho cada mañana. If I want to ask you, do you shower every night? ¿Tú te duchas cada noche? And let's try another reflexive verb. For example, afeitarse, which is to shave. Again, it kind of means to shave yourself. So afeitar is the non-reflexive cousin of the verb, which is a regular verb ending in AR, and that would be conjugated afeito, afeitas, afeita. So that non-reflexive version would mean to shave someone. If you own a barber shop, for example, and you shave your clients. But if I shave myself, I'll have to use the reflexive version, the reflexive verb afeitarse, to shave yourself, right? So that will be conjugated yo me afeito, tú te afeitas, él, ella, usted se afeita, nosotros, nosotras nos afeitamos, vosotros, vosotras os afeitáis, ellos, ellas, ustedes se afeitan. So if I want to say, for example, I shave every morning, yo me afeito cada mañana. We shave every morning, nosotros nos afeitamos cada mañana. And of course, the nominative pronoun, nosotros or yo, those are optional. So I can say yo me afeito, or I can just say me afeito cada mañana. And for we shave every morning, nos afeitamos cada mañana. So yo and nosotros is optional, me and nos is not optional. It's part of the reflexive verb. So we shave, nosotros nos afeitamos, or nos afeitamos. I shave, yo me afeito, or me afeito. So that's it for today. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next episode.